Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Campbell Field virtual information session. My name is Maria Hyponen, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Lead for the Community Services Department at the RDCK. I'm the host and the moderator for this session. It looks like we have quite a few people who have called in already, and I see that all of our panelists are here, as well as a couple of additional staff people who are going to be here as a support. But I'd like to give a few more people some time to log in. So let's give everyone about 2 more minutes and then we'll get started, okay? Thank you. Okay, so we've had a few more people log in and I think we can get started. Okay, so once again, hello everyone. Welcome to the Campbell Field virtual information session. I'm Maria Hyponen, the Marketing and Communications Lead for the Community Services Department at the RDCK. I'm the host and the moderator for this session. Thank you for joining us tonight to hear more about the Campbell Field Reimagination Project and the 2 conceptual options that we are going to be asking the community to provide feedback on. So this session is being recorded and it will be posted on the RDCK website so that those who couldn't attend tonight can still access the same information. So we do have a number of speakers tonight and we will aim to have the presentation complete in about 45 minutes. We will have a question and answer period after the presentation. At that point, you'll be invited to ask your question, preferably using the chat and the question and answer functionality in WebEx. If you'd like to ask your question verbally, you can use the little raise hand tool in WebEx as well, and I can unmute you in turn and you'll be able to ask your question at that time. If we don't get to your question tonight, or if you think of another question later, you can always email us at campbellfield@rdck.bc.ca. So first of all, I will let you know who you'll be hearing from tonight. We have with us tonight Walter Popoff, Director, RDCK Electoral Area H. We have Joe Kiriko, General Manager of Community Services at the RDCK. We have Rob Parks from RC Strategies, and we have the team from Cover Architectural. We have Graham Leadbeater, Kelsey Witten, and Shannon Kitley. So thank you to our panelists for being here tonight. So what I'm going to do first is hand things over to Director Popoff to give some brief remarks. Director Popoff, I'll unmute you and you can go ahead.
Thank you, Maria. I really appreciate you moderating this session here. I'd like to welcome all the presenters, and I'm sure they'll provide some good information to the community. All the community members that took the time to participate in this virtual session. And what we're looking forward to has been a long road. It started in 2016, and I'm very grateful to the South Slocan Sports Association for gifting this land to the regional district. And we're almost there. We are getting there slowly, but what we're going to do with Campbell Field will be what the community wants to see at Campbell Field. It'll probably be one of the first and few truly rural facilities in our area. So I look forward to today's meeting, the presenters with the information they can provide, and I encourage the community residents that are participating in this session to ask their questions. And there is a survey that will be available for your feedback. And you can access that survey at www.rdck.ca//Campbell Field and provide your input into what we want to see happen at Campbell Field. And with that, I'll turn it back to Maria. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Director Popoff. So next, we're going to hear from Joe Kiriko. Joe, I'm going to unmute you. If you'd like, Joe, if you have your own slides to share, I can make you the presenter, or I'm happy to advance the slides of the panels, whatever you wish.
No, Maria, I think I'll just speak, and we'll let Graham, Kelsey, and Shannon present the slides. Just want to give a little bit of an overview on where, from a process point of view for the RDCK that we are at. The RDCK, as Director Popoff has outlined, received this great gift from the South Slocan Sports Association, and we immediately, as staff, and through Director Popoff, through the Recreation Commission number 8 in the Valley, through our Parks team and our management team and community services, which includes Marty Benson and Nelson and Jim Crockett and Castlegar and Mark Crow, our planner. We identified immediately that this was a very strategic location and had lots of possibilities for serving not only the Slocan Valley, but also possibly the community right in between the corridor from Nelson to Castlegar. So that strategic location has led us to really embark on a very unique process. And why it's unique is because normally we start with something and we test. So we usually test a concept, a project idea right away. In this case, what we are actually testing is a location. And so that's led for us through a number of different processes. And the first process started back in March, actually, of this year. Well, actually from last year, but the name of that led to the creation of a document called the Campbell Field Feasibility Study, What We Heard report. That was released in March of this year. That report was from research that we did at the end of 2020. What came back from that research was that the community, which was very broad. So again, this was 1,200 people responded to a survey, people from Nelson, people from Castlegar, people from Thrums, people from Slocan, from the Valley coming down, Winlaw, right along the junction. They responded to a survey about what might you do at this location, which is a very unique point of view. So in that, what we discovered was the community really identified what activities they see they could do there. Part of that was a performance. That they really felt that this space could be used to come and see a performance. And what was really unique about this study as well is that we measured, would you be willing to drive to do that? And yes, they said they would be willing to drive to that. But they also identified other items inside in that survey. And primarily, it was attending a performance, cross-country skiing, snowboarding, family gatherings, skating, swimming. Those were some of the outdoor activities, walking, jogging, that they identified. They also identified indoor activities. And those primarily, again, was attending a performance, fitness, yoga, leisure swimming, participating in classes and programs, and field sports. So where we're at now is that we tasked, and I'm sorry, I don't want to jump into Rob's area, but we realized that there was a synergy of activities that the community has said that they are interested in us exploring. And so we needed to take this to a next step. And this is the beginning of that next step. I'm going to let Rob explain how we engaged with Cover. But one of the important reasons that we wanted to engage in particular with a local architect and with a local architectural firm that has proven itself to be very flexible in its thinking is to bring that local flavor. And one of the great things that Cover brings to us is a local flavor of interpreting these results from our community. So from a staff perspective, we want the program ideas that come from the community to push this forward. And what we hope is that what you're about to be presented with inspires you to continue in this journey with us and to continue this process of collaboration of all of these communities to see what Campbell Field can become. As staff, we've been very careful about not trying to taint what the community is saying and to let that come up from the community. But what we do want to particularly emphasize is that through all of our master planning processes, they've been speaking about being able to be in a collaborative relationship with partners. And we want to point out as staff that there is one particular partner that we think, just because of location, is very strong, and that's with school district number 8. So we think there's a particular advantage to Campbell Field of where we get to bring together this location with an elementary school and with a high school and collaborate with the school to not only to enhance their programming that they offer to our young people through their educational experience, but also then bringing in the community to use those spaces as well and to make them vibrant all the way through the day and through the year. And so I really believe that Cover has captured the spirit of the feedback that we got in the first process, and really looking forward to seeing how that tests out tonight. So thanks, Maria.
Thank you very much, Joe. And my apologies to the audience. I had left the screen on the welcome slide and didn't show Joe's smiling face as he was giving his presentation there. I can ask the panelists if you want to share your video anytime, not just when you're speaking, you're welcome to do so. Joe, if you wanted to turn on your video and just give a wave to everyone so that they know who it was who was speaking, that would be great too. There he is. Thank you, Joe. Okay, so I'm now going to turn things over to Rob Parks from RC Strategies and also to the team from Cover. Rob, would you like me to make you the presenter, or should it be Shannon?
Yeah, I think just, so ultimately it'll be Shannon, but maybe I'll just make a few remarks first and then we'll sort of work into to her slides. So thanks very much, Maria and Director Popoff and Joe and everybody else who's on the call. It is an exciting project and it's exciting time. And I wanted to add a couple of points from stepping off from what Joe had said. And one of them is that this really is a rare opportunity. You know, it really is a gift, and Director Popoff talked about the actual gift of the land, but it is a real opportunity that we don't see come by us very often, that you have a site like this that's situated where it is, that presents all of these possibilities, and so that's what makes it exciting. So as Joe had mentioned, we had done a fair bit of research. It's hard to believe it was back in the fall of 2020. It's time's gone by, where we heard from a lot of people in the community, and Joe did reference that. We also did gather a bunch of information from a variety of community groups, so from typical sports associations through more community kinds of groups to get some of their thoughts about activities that could occur there. And we looked at those previous master plans that have been in place in Castlegar and in Nelson and in Area H and Slocan, and to look at what some of the activities and amenities that were identified in there, you know, could they influence what maybe we thought about the site. Anyway, through all of that research, we distilled it to a whole series of activities. And it really was quite a fulsome list. So Shannon, I think if you can share your screen, and I talked about it, I think it was that slide 4. So we ended up with a whole list of activities that we thought could be addressed on this site. And so you can see them there in front of you, the indoor activities and the outdoor. Part of the challenge with a list like that is it's fairly broad, and often when these kinds of planning exercises occurs, that list is really much briefer than what you see before you. And so we knew that we had a challenge in front of us to try and figure out how all of this stuff might be able to fit on that site. And so we knew that we couldn't do it alone. And so that was the connection with Cover Architecture. And they were able to take all of these activities and try and puzzle out how we might be able to address them as best we could on that site. And so if we can go to the next slide there, Shannon. This really captures kind of what the two main options are. And you can see that there's some overlap there. So we have a little bit of a Venn diagram, but in essence, the two options really are differentiated between kind of the size of the indoor facility. And I think that's a bit of a driver. And so option 1 that we've said is an indoor focus, has a much larger building and indoor activity space. Typically, when you have a building that's bigger like that, it has you know, a greater need for parking on the site. And so that's part of that option 1. Option 2 was to have maybe a bit of a smaller building there, and it had more of an outdoor focus for it. And so these are, I would say, fairly conceptual at this point, but it really was a great job by Cover to take all of those different activities and be able to puzzle out how we might be able to achieve as much as we could on that site through these two different options. And so with that setup and that challenge, I'll turn it over to the team at Cover Architecture to speak about the two concepts that they ended up coming up with based on this information.
Oh, Graham, I don't think we can hear you. Are you muted?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
Sorry. I'll learn one of these days. Thanks, Shannon. Thanks very much, Rob. It's a great pleasure that we have had to be involved with the regional district on this project. And thanks to Director Popoff, Joe, and of course, Rob from RC Strategies. And Maria, thank you for hosting tonight. I'm joined tonight with by 2 of our 4 members of our sport and recreation team, which Cover Architecture in Nelson has developed. And you've met, and you'll hear from Kelsey and Shannon shortly, but I'd also like to acknowledge Narelle Sukharukov, who was born, grew up, and played around at Campbell Field and just live down the road. So Narelle's had a very active role in this project as well, but couldn't attend this evening. So as Rob says, this is a very challenging kind of set of requirements to try to synthesize into some kind of solution. And our team felt that there really were these two options, and the possibility to connect and sort of move between them. I call it sort of a bias to more of an outdoor or a bias toward an indoor. I think probably a better word is the focus. And I think tonight I'm going to let Shannon and Kelsey do most of the explanation. But what I would ask you to do is to sort of pay attention to some really key issues. Clearly, the size of the facility, as Rob has mentioned, is important, so that, as he said, the indoor focused set of options have larger facilities. They have larger performance spaces. Spaces require more parking and probably allow less outdoor space. The indoor, or pardon me, those are the indoor. The outdoor focused spaces have a smaller building along the size of a high school gym. And they'll have a large covered roof area. And I think you'll notice in a lot of facilities now, trying to develop a covered outdoor area that has illumination, but protects the users from the elements, allows for sort of 3 and almost 4 season use, but doesn't have to be tempered and have walls. Many of us, we've seen examples of arenas, outdoor ice surfaces that have a roof covering. It really extends at a very cost-effective way the use of the facility. So you'll see some of that coming out primarily in the outdoor focused options. And of course, it requires less parking and more opportunities to extend the recreation and sport. So there's a lot of concepts here, and many of them are pick and choose. You could meld more in from the outdoor into the indoor side and vice versa. But I think it gives you a very broad spectrum of possible solutions. So with that, over to Kelsey.
Thanks, Graham. Yeah, thank you, everyone. I feel like really gave a good sense of sort of those program elements that we're trying to work into the site, and then also the two options that we're looking at tonight. So like Graham said, we've tried to show two possibilities sort of along this spectrum, but it is important to keep in mind it's just really a jumping off point. It's a place of discussion, and we'd love to hear sort of things from one idea or things from another that could also come together in a bit of a hybrid. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail now. So Shannon, you could head to the next slide there and give a little bit of an idea of the site, because for both of these options, we've had to do a bit of a site analysis, and both options respond to the existing conditions of the site. So first, we did have to consider sort of that approach from the south. The main roads kind of lead into the site in that southeast corner there. So in both options, you'll see sort of the parking off of that area. Another great feature of the site is its proximity to the rail trail. So the rail trail actually runs along the entire south edge of the site there, which could lead to some really exciting opportunities connecting this project to other rec and outdoor elements in the area. Another consideration are the neighbors on both sides. So on the west side, we have like a business sort of building. And then on the other side, we have the school. So we might want to consider a bit of a buffer on that west side, but we're also looking to try to optimize any opportunities to connect with the school and sort of share these amenity spaces on that east side in both options. Another element of the site that was important and considered in both options was the existing tree. If you've ever been to the site, you'll know that there's quite a lot of trees, especially on that east portion. So both options sort of try to site the building and site the programs to have a good impact and to utilize those beautiful natural features as much as we could. On the north side, it's the hill, so we've got quite a sloping embankment there. Beautiful views out onto trees in the hillside, and then we've got sort of the south orientation would be our nice sun side. So those are things that apply to both of these concepts and have been really carefully considered in laying out both of the options. You'll also notice we've used a bit of color coding, so there's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of program elements like Robin Graham mentioned. So just to kind of make a bit of sense of that, we've made the orange element on the site plan our building, and you'll see some little example images on the right side there. And the example images in orange are those examples of that building, and the text there giving some examples as well. We have our performance space there in yellow on the plans, and we've got the purple is our outdoor gathering and event space, and then parking and bike parking in blue, and then more general sort of sports and outdoor elements are shown in green there. So I'll dive now into this specific option. It's our option 1 indoor focus. So like Graham mentioned, this is going to have the larger building. It's showing approximately the size of a arena. So having this larger indoor space, we're gonna be able to fit more program elements into that. Could include things like court sports, spaces and rooms for yoga or other classes. We can also have that flexibility of the indoor performance space, so possibly seating, retractable seating that comes out during events and can be put away at other times. And then we've also shown here the option for an indoor walking track. So in that list of program ideas, the indoor versus outdoor, there were a few things that showed up in both indoor and outdoor. So that walking and jogging is something that we've tried to incorporate both inside and outside on the site. Another really important consideration in both of these concepts is the flexible use of the spaces. So making sure that the site can be really an all seasons recreation space, and that we don't have dead zones. So each zone can sort of have multiple uses, multiple program options. So you can see in the yellow zone there, it's going to, we're suggesting covered outdoor performance space. This would be a possible way of extending that building, making it larger, so having options for an even larger event to be hosted there. And then that covered outdoor space could be used sort of for more day-to-day program, gathering, picnic, that sort of thing. We've also shown the parking, like I said, off of the road and in the blue there. And then we've shown adjacent to it an open field area that could work just as a regular sort of outdoor sports field, but then also be converted into event runoff parking if it was needed for a larger performance event. In this option, because of the sort of necessity for the larger building, the options for flexibility for larger events to be hosted on the site, it does mean that the sort of more specifically programmed outdoor spaces are a bit smaller and maybe a bit less specifically programmed. So we might not have as many, like a park, a smaller area for maybe a park facility, or a playground facility. And those sorts of things might take up just a bit smaller of a part of the site, so that it sorry, I lost my train of thought there. So that flexibility is there with those larger events and that sort of thing. But some options that we would like to explore in that sort of sport green part of the site. Might be things like a snowshoe trail, walking trail, and just general sort of use of the, sorry, got a little
Can we
bit
enlarge
sidetracked.
those little images, Shannon, or was that you doing that? Yeah,
Yeah.
just to kind of give some of the, that's very helpful. You know, to see some of the shelters that could be used, that could have solar panels on the roof, or making use of the natural landscaping, or bringing in some bouldering opportunities, those kind of natural, very, very substantial, and sort of low maintenance kind of features within the parkscape. And
Yeah.
in the, maybe that one, I think Kelsey, in the one image that was the outdoor amphitheater, uh, not to confuse everybody, because there's a bigger covered space on the next option. The performance space, or the stage as it would be in this option, probably the covered area versus the whole seating area. So you start to see the ability to sort of pull and push between the options, how much of that outdoor area is covered or how little of it. So yeah, why don't you move on to the option 2, just in the interest of time?
Okay. Thanks, Graham.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so here our option 2 has more of an outdoor focus. So you'll see in orange there, the building is smaller, maybe the size of a high school gymnasium. So there's still the opportunity for courts, sports, and smaller performance space. Again, the yellow space there is a covered outdoor space, so we could have that extend out, the building open up, so that you could have also a larger outdoor performance space connecting to that building. Because the building is smaller on this site, and maybe we aren't going to host quite as large events here, the parking and then that runoff parking space is also a bit smaller. So we've incorporated in this option some more specific program elements to that outdoor space. So kind of dividing up the site into a few different zones, with a few different sort of outdoor recreation uses. You also see the white line running through the site. It's sort of a diagrammatic example of maybe a trail that runs through the entire site and would meander, and that could be a walking trail in the summer, a snowshoe trail in the winter, and it would just help to connect all those program elements on the site together, and then to the parking area, and also connect them to the rail trail. So some ideas of outdoor spaces that came both from the survey, as well as just the actual site and what all those trees and the natural conditions of the site might offer. Could be like in the top corner there, we've got through the trees a bit of a walking trail. Could also be a pump track for biking. Could be a snowshoeing trail in the winter. There's also in purple there the idea for just a general gathering space. Might have a small covered area for sort of smaller performance or smaller gathering, markets, that sort of thing, close to the rail trail, and some bike parking as well, so people could access those programs that way. You'll also see at the top there, we've got a small section saying water. Something that people were interested in the survey was swimming, sort of general aquatics. On this site in particular, I think there would be a great option for there to be an outdoor sort of water feature. This could be a splash pad. It could be a water fountain that kids could play in the hot weather. Adults can take off their shoes and walk around in and enjoy. So it's sort of a smaller version of just that water sort of recreation that people are wanting to see at the site. Adjacent to that, we also have in pink some court sports. Could be a children's playground. Next to that water feature could also be skateboarding, inline skating, kind of hardscape surface there. inside the building, we haven't touched on yet, but could have similar sort of program elements to the option one, but they would just be smaller versions of it. So maybe smaller court sports could be included in there, fitness and yoga and program spaces as well. And then again, by opening it up with that covered outdoor space next to it, it could really make the building feel larger without a huge actual building being tempered, but really extend the space out into the outdoor space and blur those lines there. Yeah, you can maybe show some of those images a little bit, Shannon. So you can see there sort of an example of an outdoor water feature. You can also see an example of a large covered outdoor space that could have an ice sheet in there, but again, indoor, outdoor, it's covered from the elements, but it's still an outdoor space. So with both of these options, just to sort of summarize, we've been really trying to figure out where on the spectrum we want to lie between emphasizing a really robust indoor facility that could house a ton of these programs, but then leaving the outdoor space along with that larger building, leaving that outdoor space a bit more general, just so that it's able to accommodate sort of those runoff parkings or other necessities on the site. And then in this option 2 with our indoor focus or our outdoor focus, just trying to see if there's more of an appetite in the community to have really specific sort of outdoor program elements, bouldering walls, pump tracks, trails, those sorts of things that would be accessed just from the outdoors. That's the feedback that we're hoping to get from these options, and we look forward to hearing what sort of piques everybody's interests. And thank you for your time.
Yeah, so Shannon, can you run through some of the more built examples that we've been able to find?
Yeah, I'll go through them quickly. So these are some precedents, which is really just a fancy way of saying examples. They're just some images to get the creative juices flowing and just to try and imagine what the space and facility could be. And so nothing is set in stone, but just to start thinking about those options. And so the upper half of the page here, these images are focusing on more outdoor program space, whereas the lower half of the page is looking more at building form and how that facility might function and maybe transition into the outdoor space. So I'll just walk you through, maybe I'll zoom in a bit. I'll just start left to right. So this image here is just kind of an example of what we might have as informal gathering space or seating. Yeah, and then on to the right of that, we've got an image of a mist pad. But again, like Kelsey was saying, we had heard some interest in an aquatics facility. So just trying to imagine what those water features might look like if we brought them outdoors, or if we didn't necessarily implement a pool, but there's a lot of opportunity there. To the right of that, we've got a walking trail through the trees. A big focus for this would be accessibility, using some really durable materials, and also sustainable materials. You can see the wood planking here, but opportunities to create covered seating areas, benches. And then to the right of that, you can see some people skating, but we're really trying to think about how these spaces can transition seasonally and have multiple functions throughout the year, so we don't end up with those dead zones. So this image is showing a skating rink, which might not work for the climate, but we could maybe transition the path into some sort of snowshoeing path, or there's a lot of options there. Down on the left here, we've got a basketball court, but just looking at how we could pull some of those hard court sports outdoors if we do go with a facility option with a smaller building. So there is opportunity to transition some of that program outdoors, and just really looking at how we can use graphics and color to make it a really fun and playful space. To the right, we've got some kids climbing on a pretty creative tree climbing feature. But again, just looking at how we can really bring play into the area and create some playground structures for kids. The image on the right is another example of an accessible walking path. This is kind of a fun concept. Another feature that we had really heard or stood out in this study was the opportunity to bring a performance space or a performance venue into this project and really create that sort of facility for the area. So this is looking at a smaller scale performance venues, but how maybe they could function as pavilions throughout the site, as Kelsey was talking about earlier. Maybe the gathering space that is separate from the main building also functions as a performance space. And then looking at these lower images, this example really shows how the building can transition from an interior to exterior space and how part of that building could actually become a performance venue or a gathering space. The example to the right here shows maybe more of a pavilion option. So it's separate from the building, but it's again like a covered gathering space with some venue seating. This image to the right really shows the sort of atmosphere we want to bring into the building. So lots of windows, natural light, natural sustainable materials. And then if you look down to the bottom left, this precedent shows how we want the interior space to function. So really creating multifunctional spaces that can transition from sports to performance and have many uses. So again, we're avoiding those dead zones. It's always being used for something. And then this, I'll just skip to this last image on the right and for the sake of time, just showing how the building form actually can cantilever out and create some sort of covered outdoor space. So again, really trying to blend that interior and exterior space and show that these programs are actually really fluid between the interior and exterior. So I think that's everything that we had.
Thanks, Shannon. I was just going to say that in the image that was on the bottom left, that would obviously, we could facilitate using retractable bleachers. So you could have a wide open space for sport and pull out these bleachers, which are quite impressive equipment that's available these days for events. And, you know, depending on whether it was an indoor, outdoor focus, you could probably get anywhere from 200 or 300 seats up to 700 or 800 seats on removable bleachers or retractable bleachers. Anyway, I think we've gone far too long. Maria's probably ready to hit the mute button. And so maybe we should wrap it up there. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much to Graham and Kelsey and Shannon. Rob, was there anything that you wanted to add before we get into the question and answer period?
Yeah, just quickly, I've been reading a few of the comments in the chat, and I know Maria, you were going to bring those up in the Q&A part, but I guess I just wanted to mention that, you know, these are concepts now, and the idea is to generate some of the commentary that we've seen there, and I think people are starting to realize, if they hadn't already, the challenge of trying to address local needs with the needs of people in kind of the broader region, and to address all of those things that people are interested in. And I think the work that Cover's done here is been really excellent in that it's caused us to think a little bit about what it is. So even where things are situated on the site according to you know, those concepts, you know, there is flexibility and all of that. This definitely isn't set in stone, and nobody's going to hire the bulldozer to go out and do anything or build anything based on these at all. But the notion is to take those ideas that we had for space and figure out how we might lay them out and what some of those combinations might be. So yeah, I think that's good for me, Maria. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rob. Okay, so thank you, everyone. And thank you also to Director Popoff and Joe Kirko for your comments earlier. I'm just going to end the recorded part of the presentation before we get into the questions and answers. So I do encourage you to view the panels in person where they are installed, or view the panels online at rdck.ca/Campbell Field. You'll be able to fill out the survey with a link on the website, or you can just snap a picture of the QR code on the panel itself on your smartphone to go right to the survey. And the survey will be open until December 17th. So I'm just going to end the recording here.